Hello, he, she's, theys, gays, dogs and cats and frogs and bats. It's old world time, and today we're looking at legacy armies or core armies. Which one do you want? I don't know. Watch and find out. Da 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 da. It's the Nerd Theorists. So we've got two army box sets that have come out at launch: the Bretonias and the Tomb Kings of Kamari. Now, as awesome as they are, and Dave has bought the Bretonia one, at time of release, I didn't have the money to be able to buy a box set. Then when I did have the money to buy a box set, I thought, do I really want one? As much as they're both awesome armies, everybody that's gone out to get an army at release is going to have one of the two, or both. And I didn't want to go along like a sheep. I wanted to be different, because I am different. Look at me, for fuck's sake. I'm different. Well, look at the tash. I drive a hot pink 1975 Beetle. I'm different. So I didn't want either of those box sets. Now I do want the Dwarven Mountain Holds. And when Warhammer Fantasy first came out, when I was a wee lad, I was an orc man, or an orc boy, as the case may be. But that was back then when I didn't have very much money because I was a child and I was relying on my parents buying me things. And now I do have money. It's very tempting to just say, balls, I'm going to have everything. But I'm not. I'm going to be a good boy. Now, I wanted to get into the game from the off. And like I say, I wanted the dwarves, which I obviously can't have until they're released. Luckily, Games Workshop, being all nicey, have released the Legacy Army lists, which are factions from the original Warhammer Fantasy that aren't going to be in this game. They're not going to release new models. They've already said that. They've called them unsupported armies. But they have released a free PDF for each one of these Legacy armies. So I've gone for the Vampire Counts because I do like them, and the Soulblight Grave Lords. This is why they called them the Vampire Counts, because that's a mouthful, isn't it? The Soulblight, the vampires from Age of Sigmar. Most of the units are the same units from the fantasy ones, so you can use those models if you want. They have already announced, Games Workshop have already announced that Legacy factions won't be legal armies in any official tournament. So, who cares? Do what you want. Print your own models. Use other models. It basically comes down to the fact that you're just playing the game with one of your mates. Now, the thing that people have got to remember about these Legacy armies is that the community for Old World or Warhammer Fantasy is awesome. They kept the game alive all the while it hasn't been there. They between them there was the army, what was it called? The army something. Anyway, they continued the game. The community created lore. They created new rules. They modified the old rules, and they kept the game going. Now that community will obviously still exist for the old world, and they will keep helping. They will keep filling in the gaps. But I've put a little list together. So I've only compared the Dwarven Mountain Holds and the Vampire Counts. Obviously, there's lots of other legacy armies, and there's lots of other core armies. Now I've got both the books. I've got the Fantasy Realm, or whatever it's called, the good guys and the bad guys, the Mumbling Horde and the Fantasy Geezers, whatever the two books are called. So I've got both of them, and I've had a flick through to compare if having a legacy army, what are the downsides? Are they really leaving it? Because they say it's unsupported, but I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. So, Dwarven Mountain Holds. Lore in the book. Now, when you first open the Forces of Fantasy, there is, I think, about 4 or 5, possibly 6 pages of lore. Now, it doesn't really matter because the vast amount of lore in the actual rulebook is there. You don't really need any more lore. You want the lore for the individual factions. Now, when you turn to the Dwarven Mountain Hold, you get 2 pages of lore, which isn't very much at all. In the Vampire Counts, free PDF, no lore. 2 pages, no lore. But if you Google Vampire Count battle tome or codex or whatever I think they were battle tomes. There's a lot of them free now. I'm not suggesting you should do it. I'm just saying that if you wanted to read the lore, it's available. Grand Army composition list. Yes for the Dwarven Mountain holds in the official book, and yes for the free PDF for the Vampire Counts. Number of units listed. Now, this is interesting. Dwarven Mountain holds have 23 units listed in their section. The Vampire Counts have 29. So the Vampire Counts actually have more units listed in the free PDF than the supposedly supported Dwarven Mountain holds. Now, obviously, there are going to be new units that come out as the game progresses for all of the core units, but not for the legacy units. So the Vampire Counts units will never get any bigger, whereas the Dwarven Mountain holds inevitably will. They've got 23. If you flick through the book, the Empires of Man, they've got 30 units. So each faction has got its own number of units, but Vampire Counts 29 units, substantial. It's good, and they're fully supported. The details for each unit exactly the same. It gives you all the stats. It gives you the base size, how many models in a unit, any special rules for that unit. It's all there for both. All the free PDFs have got all of those details. Magic items, yes for both. Special rules, yes for both. The Dwarven Mountain holds have rune magic, which obviously the Vampire Counts don't have anyway, so that wouldn't be in theirs. The Vampire Counts have vampiric powers and their Law of Magic School, which is the Law of Undeath, which is their magic school. I think individually the units on the Dwarven Mountain holds and the other core units, they do go into a little bit more detail, but not a great deal. Excuse me, burping in the middle of the video, very unprofessional. So all in all, for what is supposedly an unsupported army, it's fully playable, absolutely fully playable. No, you will not be able to play in official tournaments, but, I mean, who does? I've never played an official Warhammer tournament in anything, 40k or Sigma or any of that, in all the years I've been playing. And Kings of War, I have played in tournaments, but again, not official Mantic ones. So does it really matter? You're playing with your mates. The great thing about it being a legacy army is you're free. You're free reign. Obviously, you stick to the constraints of the base size. But I will do a video on creating a legacy army because I've created a substantial Vampire Counts army made up from Age of Sigmar models, made up from various other models, a lot of 3D printed stuff. And because you've got the book and it tells you the units, you know, direwolves, you Google direwolf 3D print file, I found it. It cost me about £2. So you've got a lot more freedom with the legacy ones, and you haven't got to wait. That said, I am going to buy the dwarves. I may be swayed with the orcs. I've looked at the new orcs because they have been the images have been released and they do look pretty cool. But as an army goes, there's nothing wrong with a legacy army. I think it's a brilliant opportunity, and obviously for us old gits who played Warhammer Fantasy when it was originally out, not me because I obviously car booted all of my models because I'm a bellend, but for you old twats that kept your original models, have at it. You've got your army list, you've already got your models, and plus if you've still got your old models, you've probably still been playing 9th edition anyway, so but it's all there, and I think it's good for Games Workshop. I think they're missing a trick, not having all of the armies, and it will probably change. I mean, Vampire Counts particularly, they're undead. They're not gone, they're still about. Alright, they're not in their main storyline that they're producing for the old world, but they're still about. And then when the world was destroyed, they were the soul-blight graveyards lords. So we know they survived. Van, what's his name? The Van Man. Yeah, so nothing wrong with it. Legacy versus core, as far as I care, not a lot of difference. No, you won't be all excited when it's like, oh look, new models, but you make your own, you print your own, you do what you want. So yeah, go legacy, go hard, go legacy. Yeah, like I say, follow up video with my creating a Vampire Counts army, and probably a Dave one because he's got Skavens, and he's also putting together a High Elf, which is a core unit, but he's still got his old models, and he's been buying up old models from eBay, so he's going to have a substantial High Elf army before the High Elves are actually released. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to post me some money. Don't forget to put the bins out, and various other things that people of my age forget. Where am I? Whose feet are those?